On today's show, the Bucs lose to the Lions in Monday Night Football by a score of 24-9. But what's even worse? Mike Evans out for the foreseeable future. What does that mean for the Bucs? I'll discuss next on this edition of the Bucs Report. Let's go. Well, hello and welcome into this edition of the Bucs Report, part of the Bucs Report podcast network. The best way that you can help grow this show is to subscribe to the Bucs Report on YouTube and comment anything down below. And for all of your news surrounding your favorite team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, check out thebucsreport.com. So in this edition of the Bucs Report, we talk about the loss in Monday Night Football to the Lions by a score of 24-29, and how easily the chance of Baker Mayfield as the MVP evaporates. This is a week-to-week league. This is a game-by-game league. A game of what have you done for me lately? And in the game Monday night, well, there left quite a bit to be desired. And what am I talking about? This was against a tough team. Make no mistake about it. But it was also against a team that was facing a lot of injuries as well. They found a way, the Lions that is, a way to rise above and take down the Bucs. And I guess what makes this loss so difficult for me, I said this earlier in the season as well, is this loss felt to me like more than just a loss. I feel like the game Monday evening took the Bucs back a couple steps here, and they're going to have to regroup, and they're going to have to do it with Mike Evans out of the mix for the foreseeable future. You know, the reports as I record this at 11:35 Eastern is that he is going to be out maybe all the way till the end of the season. And as I record this, Baker Mayfield, who was seen limping off the field, what he said is that he will be good to go in the next game versus the Saints, but we don't know at this point and how everything has changed. Emeka Egbuka was back in the mix, but doesn't look like the Egbuka that we saw earlier in the season, that, you know, riding a high, and that's what it's all about. And you know, I talked about this, follow the bouncing ball that surrounds the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're on top of the world 1 minute, and in a lot of ways, I'm not saying I'm pushing the panic button, but I'm looking for where is it? So when the next thing happens, the next major injury happens, that maybe we can push the panic button, because, you know, losing primarily the entire wide receiver room, that has definitely set back the Bucs a bit. You know, you have Johnson & Johnson as your big contributors in the wide receiver room, but you're all big key players. I'm talking Godwin, Evans, these kind of guys, Jalen McMillan, that how do you find a way to rise above? So let's dive into it here in this episode here, talking about the game Monday night. And just a quick recap here that Detroit beat Tampa 24-9 on Monday Night Football, and how this team doesn't fare too well in these kind of games. You know, the big stage, that sometimes they struggle, but Gibbs absolutely ripped the Bucs apart. He finished with a career day, 218 yards from scrimmage and 2 rushing touchdowns. The Buccaneers were not able to contain him. They didn't have the answer. The Lions were just that much better. Don't go reaching for your excuse cupboard. Like, where is it? I got to find me an excuse somewhere. The Lions were just better. And the Buccaneers are going to have to find a way to get better in a hurry. You know, I know that the Saints aren't the Saints that we remember from back in the Breeze days, but they're a team as well that are going to try to stick it to the Bucs when they're down. But talking about the game last night, Detroit controlled a lot of the line of scrimmage and made enough plays to take the win. We had few self-inflicted problems too, an interception, a fumble, and a missed chance or two on third down. Bottom line, they were the better team Monday night. That's a short version. Next here, I'll break down what happened and Gibbs, the man. They had a hard time, like I said, containing him. And, when you have your key players in place, I'm talking about the Lions, your team plays very well. And you take a look at Gibbs, a standout player, as was evident. If you watched the game, you heard his name quite often, and he was the key contributor. And so let's talk about him. He was physical, he was patient, and when the lane opened, he hit the Jets. The 78-yard run, that was the dagger. It was the big hole run, then speed to finish. He also had a short spinning touchdown in the third to salt it away, rubbing salt in the wounds of a Bucs team that just didn't look anything like the team that we had seen earlier in the season. And when you give a guy space like that, he can make NFL-level plays consistently. He finished with 136 rushing yards and 82 receiving yards, which added up to 218 yards from scrimmage. I know the plan was to contain him, but they failed quite miserably at doing it. And that is a career high and is one of those nights that you can change a season for back. The Lions used him in a balanced way, design runs, screens, and he made them all count. And for large swaths of the game, it felt like Baker, who was normally, quite composed, a guy that is buttoned up and has his game together, he struggled, and it almost seemed like a paper bag pulled over his head and trying to hit his attackers. He just couldn't do it. He looked disjointed. And, that's one of the things that I talked about is not letting all the noise come in. All the MVP talk, the pump in the tires that, he's trying to eat humble pie, but at some point it's seeping in. And, I don't want to say that, it was, just all Baker, but Baker struggled in this game. And I know I'll probably get some grief for that, as there is a lot of Baker fans. I'm a Baker fan. I'm not abandoning him, if you will, just because he had a bad game. But these are the moments that you need to rise above. Had this been the end of the season and the playoffs were on the line and they were playing a Lions-esque type team, well, this kind of just really draws into focus what this team is made from. And, again, it's about regrouping and getting ready for the next one. You have not a lot of time to lick your wounds, as it was a Monday night event, and the Saints are on deck. But talking about the offensive performance, Baker Mayfield, Baker finished 28 of 50. Let's circle back to that one. 28 of 50. That is a far cry from what I'm usually used to coming to you guys talking about. One touchdown, one interception. That's 56% completion and only about 4.6 yards per attempt. And that, again, that is, who is this? Is this Jekyll and Hyde? Did he pull his mask off and Jameis Winston popped out? I'm not sure. His passer rating was in the 60s. He was under pressure a lot. The Lions finished with 4 sacks. That doesn't help. That rattles your confidence, you got to think. And under pressure, Baker's rating was particularly poor. Look, earlier this season, he was playing MVP level ball. On Monday night, he was below the standard he'd set. Some of that is credit to Detroit's rush plan, some of its play calling, some of its execution. You mix it all together and you get a stagnant passing game. You got to know, and I'll talk about Evans later in the show, but him laying it all out on the line, Mike Evans, that is, that the weapons that Baker Mayfield generally had at his disposal, he did not have. You saw Mike Evans leave the game. You saw Abuka not 100%. And down the depth chart, K-Dot and these kind of guys having to try to rise above. The Bucs did manage a touchdown to rookie Tez Johnson to open the second half. These guys, if I'm going to reach for the silver lining, it's that those guys that there was not a whole lot of expectation for to start the season have really stepped up big time. That gave us life for a second, but then the offense stalled. Third downs were ugly. We converted 4 of 16. 4 of 16. That's one of the things I talked about in the last show. You got to do better. That's not going to cut it. And when you can't extend drives, you put your defense back on the field and guys get tired. And that was evident. It looked like they were just worked over and they didn't really have the answer. And that was what was difficult in this game. The playmakers were there in parts, but the Bucs could not sustain it. The offense line had its moments and its lapses. I don't want to overblame the O-line entirely, but when Detroit is generating pressure and you can protect on third and medium repeatedly, the QB has to rush stuff and throws get forced. That's what happened. A tough game for the Buccaneers to try to regroup. And how do they do that? How do they do that without one of their key weapons? I'm talking Mike Evans. I'm talking the fact that he won't be back until the tail end of the season. What does that mean for the Bucs? I'll discuss straight ahead. All right, welcome back into this edition of the Bucs Report, part of the Bucs Report podcast, simulcast on the Bucs Minicast podcast feed, part of the Fans First Sports Network. So let's talk about the injury that Mike Evans, getting Mike Evans healthy is, it's a Herculean feat, isn't it? That's the hamstring issues. It was, the injury in the game on Monday night. And I understand he's not trying to injure himself. I get all that. Unlucky, I guess is what I'm going to say. Added to that, Godwin being where he's at right now, that the Buccaneers are rather besieged, I guess you could say, with injury. And this next man up mentality, those are feel-good stories for a game or two. But what does that mean for the Bucs with the Saints on deck? And what does the loss of Mike Evans mean? So Mike Evans exited the game in what turned out to be a broken collarbone and a concussion, a 2-for-1 in the poorest way possible. He was helped off after a scary-looking play. Todd Bowles said after the game that Evans will be out for most of the remainder of the season. Underline that, boldface type, highlight it. That could be one of the daggers of the season. And I don't want to jump into the despair pools right away. But missing key receivers and how this team was constructed to start the season is a far cry from where they're at right now. And Mike Evans' loss, that's rough. Mike was coming back from that hamstring issue, and then this happened less than half into his return. Now, listen, losing Mike Evans is massive for the offense. He's not just a target. He's a chain mover, a contested catch machine. The guy that opens up the field for everybody else. The timing is brutal. I think that, a lot of Bucs fans were getting ready to celebrate, like, who are we going to play in the playoffs? Those kind of things. Pump the brakes, folks, here. Temper expectations on this season. But this is the team being put to test. Again, can they rally and pick up a next win? Okay, then that softens the blow. Where this team can spin out of control in a hurry is that if it's one loss and then a second loss and it builds, and then all of a sudden you're losing games to teams that you're much better than, that's where this Evans injury really gets drawn into focus. So what does this mean? Well, it means we need other guys to step up. Emeka Egbuka, Sterling Shepard, Cade Otton, Rashad White in the run game, but also schematically. Todd Bowles and the staff will have to rework the passing concepts. Take however you drew this up in the beginning of the season and throw it in the garbage. It's null and void. You can't just replace Evans overnight. You can reach for the waiver wire. Hell, you can even make a trade out there. You're not going to find another Evans on the market. The thing I know for certain, Jason Light better, really dig deep and historically high-fiving him all the way. Like, wow, at the draft, at, this and that and the other thing. I'm going to hold the high five and see what he does. There's got to be an answer behind door number 2. This team has too many injuries for the next man up mentality. We're already some of the last men available up. We have not a lot of men down there to up. So he's going to have to go out. The trade deadline is in early November and do something to rectify this, or this season that, just last week, when I say it's a week-to-week league, it's not hyperbole. It is quite actually a week-to-week league. And Mike Evans out for what is going to be damn near the duration. That's a dagger right here that I don't know how the Buccaneers overcome from. So the defense, and what did work, we pressured Jared Goff at times. We forced a few mistakes, but there were also big plays against us. The 27-yard touchdown to Amon-Ra St. Brown on Detroit's opening drive. That was what started the positivity momentum going for them. Gibbs' runs created a tone that forced us to play more reactive than protective early in the game. It triggered a fight or flight in the Bucs. Early in the game, Detroit had an interception and a lost fumble and even a missed field goal, yet they found a way to batten down the mental hatches and get it done. Despite those opportunities, they still led 14-3 at one point because we couldn't flip turnovers into sustained offensive advantage. That is complementary football issue. Defense does what it can. Offense must capitalize. A couple things I saw that need fixing: tackling angles in space, getting off blocks quicker on second level runs, and better disguise pre-snap adjustments to slow down Gibbs. They didn't do it. There's no do-over. That's it. Also getting a consistent edge pressure matters. If we can win one-on-one outside, teams will keep cutting to the perimeter and using screens and draws to beat our leverage. And that's the thing. You have to make the most of your opportunity. Some things worked, most things didn't. Talking special teams and kicking small margin stuff, Chase McLaughlin made a 53-yarder to get us on the board at halftime. That was huge. That's offense. We'll take it. On the flip, Detroit hit a 58-yarder off the uprights early in the fourth, so the kicking game was actually a wash in terms of distance. But special teams do more than kick distance. Field position matters. We had a couple of punts that could have pinned them deeper. Again, that is a mess. I think that the special teams needs work, shall we say. Little things that can matter later in the game. Also, coverage units need to avoid penalties. Penalties kill drives and extend opponents' sets. They did the right things right. And like I said, they adjusted when things weren't going right. That, as a matter of fact, is why the Lions won this game. Now, we already discussed Mike Evans, which is a huge one, right? And do you want more bad news? So that's all I got. I'm looking in the cupboard here. I'm all out of good news. All I've got is bad news. Is that okay? That's where we're at here. Hassan Reddick left with knee and ankle issues in the second half. We had other bumps and bruises during the game too, which is expected in prime time. But the Evans news overshadows everything. Even bigger than the loss, if you can believe it. Detroit had some personal issues in their secondary as well. Still, they found a way to make plays, and Gibbs stepped up. That's what truly good teams do. Again, not a knock on the Bucs, but these are the kind of teams the Buccaneers are going to have to win against. And depth will be tested over the next month. The Bucs have to. They have to. There's no other choice. Figure out who steps up into the role and how to keep a passing attack viable without their alpha leader. The heartbeat of the offense for years has been Mike Evans, and now he's out for damn near the duration. That's a dagger. Let's not try to polish that turd too much. If you're worried about Evans' timeline, the coaches said he'll be gone until toward the end of the season. That means, Jason Light, are you listening? Pick up the phone. That means we need a plan for November football without him. We can't just go, hey, man, that's Disney movie stuff. Hey, next man up, and this guy saved the day. That's good for a game or two. How the hell do you dig deeper? We're in a hole. Someone's got to throw us a lifeline. We need something to feel positive about. That might, include lineup changes, more creative route combos, and perhaps leaning a little more on the run or tight end work. But we need to address the lack of receivers. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. Godwin out, Evans out, McMillan out, Abuka 60 to 75% in the game. We need more answers. All right, player notes. Who stood out for Tampa? Tez Johnson. Again, I'm looking for a silver lining. That is it. Had the 22-yard touchdown to open the second half. That played some juice and playmaking ability. Cade Otton had some reliable reps. Rashad White carried some of the load on the run game and did what he could. Special teams, Chase McLaughlin was reliable with the long field goal. We saw flashes from a few of the depth receivers and tight ends, but the overarching feeling is we need more consistent production from the top targets when it gets tight. The offensive weapons are there, but they need to make the tough catches in the key moments. How is this going to get rectified, you ask? How, Dan? How? Film room, tactical fixes. From a schematic perspective, there are things the Bucs have to adjust. One, gap discipline against a guy like Gibbs. When the defense front over pursues or fails to scrape right, Gibbs finds seams. Two, disguise the pressure packages. When you can't consistently win pure four-man rush, you need timely blitzes and stunts. Three, third down play calling on offense. We need higher percentage plays and set up manageable third down distances. Not repeated third and long that favors the defense. And four, situational football. When you turn the ball over or don't convert on third down, the scoreboard pressure becomes real. And it's real. Coaches have to detail better in place. Todd Bowles, again, you're going to have to take the snow globe and shake it all up, because what you did earlier in the season, that ain't cutting it anymore. And I know practice fixes can sound like a cliche, but the tape shows gaps, and the staff has to address them quickly, because we have a tough road trip. New Orleans coming up, and what's it after that? The Patriots, right? They're going to have to be ready. So, like I said, a week-to-week league, what has changed? The NFC picture, where this loss leaves us. Before the game, we were sitting in a good spot in the NFC. After the loss, we slid down in the seeding. That quickly, folks. The Bucs dropped from the top spot in the NFC to around the fourth seed, depending on tiebreakers. We're still 5-2, so we're still in the thick of it. You got to dig deep. Baker Mayfield, do the damn thing you've done this entire season, and the entire duration that you're a Buck. Rally the damn troops. Dig deep. Brush aside. Let this put a chip on both shoulders and lift this team over the damn finish line. It's up to the leaders on the team. Evans, one of the pillars, is out. You got to lean on what's worked. So losing Evans complicates the road forward. But in terms of scheme and confidence, we are not out by any stretch. We still control our own damn destiny. We just have to respond. We need to respond against the Saints. There is no ands, ifs, or buts. Playoff math is one thing. Team morale and trajectory is another. Right now, we need a response. That is the reality. All right, so to close out the show, up next, the Saints trip and a media timeline and the media narrative. Straight ahead. All right, welcome back into this edition of the Bucs Report, part of the Bucs Report podcast network. Again, the best way to grow this show is to subscribe to the Bucs Report on YouTube. Comment anything down below. Let's blow it up. All right, let's dive into the final segment of today's show. There's a lot of negativity. I don't like coming to you guys with negativity. I'd rather just pump some positivity down your throat, but it is what it is. I got to talk to you about the good and the bad and the narrative around the team. The media narrative, a very fickle bunch that's looking for clickbait. The media is going to have a field day. You lose a primetime game, you lose your best receiver to the injury front on a national audience, and the storyline gets loud. The haterade, the people that wanted to dismiss this team for seasons and then turned a little bit to start the season, like maybe this is the Bucs year, are quick to just jump back to their own storylines, their old storylines. Like, I knew this team was fool's gold, right? We have to tune out a lot of the chatter from the media. Players talk about focusing on the locker room, focusing on practice, but outside the noise affects the fan base, affects the confidence, and can leak into your mindset. You got to know the players are listening to the media. And I listened to Stroud's show today, right? And an accurate assessor, Steve and Rick Stroud, knock it out of the park day in and day out. And I listened to a bit of Locked On Bucs, and I think some, really good takes there as well. That, the people that cover the team, I'm talking Amon as well. He's bigger picture NFL. They're not pushing the panic button, but they're giving you some tough love that, you can have, people out there that are going to tell you you're the greatest in the world, but you also need people to steer you straight. And that's where we're at right now. The leadership group, Levante David, Baker Mayfield, the veterans have to keep the locker room steady. Levante is the player I failed to mention in the previous segment, but a pillar has been for years. Those are the intangible leadership moments that matter in October when the schedule tightens. Again, it's one loss, and I know it sounds so crazy to get worked up about it, but this wasn't just like, a close loss. This just kind of felt like, the Eagles earlier in the season. Like, wow, that team is quite a bit better than us. I got those same vibes surrounding the game Monday night. So what the coaches need to do, practical moves. One, give Baker quicker reads early in the playbook, short to intermediate connections, quick outs, and high percentage completions to get rhythm. Two, schematically game plan to limit Gibbs' second level access. That's what they needed to do. They didn't use two high safety looks to force Detroit to win space. These are the woulda, shoulda, coulda, didn't. And the thing they did, get Auden and Shepard more involved in the red zone and intermediate throws. For evaluate the pass rush and maybe look for help in the front office to add serious about adding a wide receiver, perhaps an edge rusher. So what's a fan's perspective from this? What is a fan to do walking away from this? Are you still as confident about this team right now? To all the Bucs fans listening, the knee-jerk panic is natural. You watch your team lose on national TV and watched Mike Evans cart it off. That's hard to overcome from. And if you live out of market and people know you're a fan of Bucs, it's the agony of defeat. And if you're old enough to know, on the Wide World of Sports on ABC, the guy falling down the ski jump there, the agony of defeat. That's what it felt like. And, coming around your fellow colleagues, your employees that you work with and go, how about them Bucs, Dan? Right. Those are the moments that really suck for me. I'm glad I don't have to work today, but we're 5-2. This team has talent. The schedule shows favors and stretches. The smart move as a fan is to keep supporting, but also demand accountability. Again, don't fall into cliches. It was only one game, blah, 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 blah. Fix it. Fix it. That's all I got to say. Call the coaches out when it's warranted, but don't jump off the cliff yet. Football is a relatively long season. It's not as long as the hockey season or the baseball season, but it goes all the way into the new year, right? And injuries happen. The teams that respond best are usually the ones that keep coaching continuity and buy into the next play. We'll see how the clubhouse responds. It is going to be interesting to see what to do. But looking longer term here, losing Evans could affect our passing attack and playoff ceiling. But teams evolve across the season. Emeka Egbuka and others could increase their role. Again, to circle back, I don't know what's going on with Egbuka. We need to see more there, right? The run game and defense have to tighten up and carry the load. The front office might explore the trade market for a receiver or edge rusher, depending on the way the roster looks and what they lack. Again, Jason Light, don't wait until the trade deadline. You will pay the king's ransom. Figure it out. I know that you don't want to trade draft picks, but if there's a season out there, to push the damn chips in, this is it. I mean, I think that you get a receiver or two, you get an edge rusher, you're back in it. If you fail to fix the problem, then you're the problem. Jason Light knows what he needs to do. He knows what he needs to do. And I know that you can't pick up a damn wide receiver off the market like it's DoorDash. I get that. But that's what good GMs do. That's the thing here. The thing of it is, win in New Orleans and you calm the nerves, lose, and the questions grow louder. How the hell did you lose to the Saints? What is this team? Is it really fool's gold? But at 5-2, you still control a lot of what happens next. Depth is the real currency from now until January. How coaches manage the roster will matter. Again, I don't want to seem like I'm pushing the panic button, but I want to be real with you guys here as well that, I was hoping that they'd find a way to win. I knew the Lions were going to be difficult. I know that they were facing a lot of injuries, and yet still the Lions found a way to close it out. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of the Bucs Report, and also follow me on the Bucs Minicast, available wherever you find your podcasts. Normally a 10-minute podcast throughout the week, kind of getting you up to date. This is more of the long-form podcast, but thank you for joining me, and watching this show grow is surely gratifying. Thank you once again for joining me on this edition of the Bucs Report podcast, part of the Bucs Report Podcast Network and the Fans First Sports Network. I'll talk to you again next time.